The moment my neck snapped on the icy stairs, I knew I was no longer in control of anything. These were the first words Clara Monroe wrote in her email to us, a 38-year-old nurse from upstate New York who died for 7 full minutes on January 12, 2024. What she experienced in that short time is beyond belief. According to Clara, she met Jesus face to face, and he revealed 4 prophetic events that are set to unfold in June 2025. She was sent back with a message, not just for her, but for you. And now she's ready to share her full story. It had snowed all night, the kind of thick, heavy snow that mutes everything, the cars, the birds, even your own thoughts. I woke up late that morning, still in my scrubs, because I'd fallen asleep on the couch after another night shift at St. Luke's Hospital. My phone was buzzing with messages from my sister reminding me to bring over Mom's medicine. She has Parkinson's, and mornings are the worst for her. I remember muttering to myself, "Just 10 minutes, Lord. Give me 10 minutes of peace." Little did I know those would be the last 10 minutes I'd spend in my body. It happened so fast. I stepped outside with the pill bottle in my left hand, a half-opened umbrella in the right. The porch stairs were layered in slick, invisible ice. My boot caught the edge. I slipped, but it wasn't the fall that killed me. It was the way my neck twisted as I landed. I heard a pop, felt nothing. Then everything froze, not just my body, time itself. I saw my face staring back at me, eyes wide open, unmoving. My mind screamed, "Get up!" But I couldn't move, couldn't blink, couldn't breathe. And then the cold vanished, and I mean that literally. The air shifted. It felt warm, like I was being held, carried, not by hands, but by something unseen and enormous, like the atmosphere itself had consciousness. My vision faded into a soft gold, like sunlight behind your eyelids. Then, nothing. You'd think dying would hurt, but it didn't. Not the way you imagine. Pain didn't matter. It disappeared the moment my soul separated from my body. I remember the sound of the wind being replaced by this strange hum. Not mechanical, not musical. More like a living vibration, soft but powerful. It felt like it was scanning me, or recognizing me. I tried to speak but had no mouth, tried to cry but had no eyes. And yet, I still was. Hovering above the icy stairs, I watched my neighbor, Mr. Hammond, rush over from across the street, phone in hand. I could hear his words, though they were spoken in panic. "She's not breathing. Call 911. Someone get a blanket." But none of it mattered. I wasn't in that broken body anymore. A strange pull began tugging at what I can only describe as the core of my soul. It wasn't physical, but it was real, strong, like gravity from another realm. And I knew instinctively I was being taken somewhere. I wasn't floating upwards. Not in the way we think of up. I was moving through layers, like sheets of glass stacked infinitely. Each one I passed through had a different sensation: regret, peace, sorrow, laughter. Emotions as environments. And then silence. Total, pure, majestic silence. It wasn't empty. It was alive. That's when I knew I had died. If I had to explain it simply, I'd say this: it felt like taking off a coat I never realized I was wearing. When my soul fully detached from my body, there was no sound, no pain, just a sudden knowing. You're on the other side now. And it didn't feel foreign. It felt like returning to some place I had once known but had forgotten. But there was something else. A presence. I didn't see him at first, but I felt him. The way you know the sun is on your skin, even with your eyes closed. The warmth grew as I moved forward, not by walking, but by intention. I simply thought, and I moved. The atmosphere shimmered with awareness. It was like the space itself was conscious. Every particle felt intelligent. I wasn't afraid. I was deeply known. Then I crossed through what looked like a veil of mist. silver and blue. On the other side was a field, but not of grass. It was made of light, flowing, living, pulsing with color that doesn't exist on Earth. And in the distance, a figure approached. No wings, no halo, just robes that moved like clouds and eyes like molten galaxies. Jesus. I didn't recognize him from any painting, but my soul knew. Every atom of me responded with awe. My thoughts, fears, and even my questions felt stripped away. I had no need to speak. He already knew. Before I could speak or think. He turned and motioned behind me, and instantly I was back above my house. But now I saw it all differently. Time wasn't linear. It was like watching layers of film playing over each other. I saw past moments, myself at age 8, crying on those same stairs. I saw future moments, my mother praying over my empty bed. I saw spiritual threads connecting me to people I hadn't even met yet. I saw my sister pulling into the driveway, screaming when she saw the paramedics working on me. I saw the energy behind her scream, a wave of vibration that echoed into some unseen realm. And I saw how that emotional ripple pulled angelic beings closer. Yes, angels. They were around the paramedics, guiding hands, sparking ideas. "Try again," one of them whispered. I heard it. So did the medic. He didn't know why, but he restarted CPR one last time, and that's when Jesus spoke. Not out loud, but into me. "This is not the end for you, Clara, but it is the beginning of your mission. What I'm about to show you must be told. The time is short, and what happens in June 2025 will shake the earth." He reached into the air and pulled what looked like a scroll of woven light. It opened into 4 parts. As each one was revealed, the sky around us changed. Each part was an event. The moment Jesus opened the scroll, everything around us shifted. I wasn't floating anymore. I was being pulled, not roughly, but with certainty, like a compass needle being magnetized to the truth. The scenery vanished and turned into a tunnel, not the cliché kind, but something more alive. It breathed. The walls were made of memory and music, shimmering with my own forgotten prayers. There were no footsteps, but every thought I had echoed like footsteps in eternity. The tunnel wasn't dark, it was quiet. Not empty quiet, but a sacred kind. A silence so deep, it had weight. I wasn't just moving through space, I was moving through layers of revelation. Every few moments I'd pass through a band of light, and each one showed me something from my own life. Not to shame me, but to help me understand the weight of every choice. I saw my bitterness toward my ex-husband. I saw the moment I chose silence over standing up for someone. And yet, with every memory came forgiveness, not like an eraser, but like a fire that purified and left only love behind. At the end of the tunnel, I saw it. Not heaven, not yet. A kind of celestial library, where scrolls floated in midair, suspended by invisible cords of energy. And Jesus stood at the center of it all, waiting for me. I felt like a child approaching her father, not because I was small, but because he was so much. He raised his hand, and the tunnel dissolved behind me. "You're not here by accident, Clara," he said, not with lips, but with total knowing. "You were brought through the tunnel, because what I'm about to show you must pass through fire first." And then the first scroll opened. We were no longer in the tunnel. We were standing at the edge of something enormous, limitless. There was no sky, no floor, just presence. I was standing in what felt like the seam between 2 realms. "This is not heaven," Jesus said, knowing my wonder. "This is the place where decisions are revealed, where destinies shift, where warnings are received." All around me, I could feel everything. The intercession of saints, the cries of the innocent, the groaning of creation. It was like hearing the heartbeat of earth and heaven at once. And then I saw them. 4 scrolls hovering in a line, each one sealed in living fire. Jesus didn't touch them. He spoke, and they unsealed. As each opened, images poured into the air, more real than any movie. But this wasn't entertainment. These were prophetic events. Each one had a date burned into the upper corner: June 3rd, 2025, June 9th, 2025, June 17th, 2025, June 24th, 2025. The energy coming off these scrolls was overwhelming. I could feel the consequence, the divine preparation behind them. Jesus looked at me with eyes like galaxies. "These are not punishments," he said. "They are course corrections. The earth is groaning, and the time has come for certain things to be released." "But Lord," I whispered from my soul, "why me?" "Because your voice is not loud, but it is trusted." And then he turned to the first scroll. Before the images began, Jesus allowed me to feel something I'll never forget. He brought me closer to what I can only describe as the voice of creation. It wasn't a sound, it was the frequency that holds reality together. I heard the vibrations of trees growing, oceans shifting, even babies being conceived. It was the sound of life being sustained, the divine engine room of the universe. "Everything that exists, Clara," Jesus said, "is held together by my word, not past tense, present." And then the light changed. The first scroll began to unfold like a living tapestry, and the voice melted into wind. I saw a city skyline, New York, I think, go dark. All of it, not just electricity, communications, satellites. Every screen went black. Airplanes grounded, hospitals scrambling, a complete and total technological blackout. And then I saw the panic. Not violence, but confusion. Desperation. People trying to call loved ones. Cars stuck. ATMs not working. But then, something strange. In the middle of the chaos, I saw prayer. Candlelit circles, neighbors singing together, strangers embracing. "This will happen," Jesus said, "so that man may remember what it means to need one another, what it means to need me." He showed me how this blackout would reset more than just systems. It would reset souls. People who hadn't prayed in years would kneel. People who thought they needed Wi-Fi would rediscover worship. "This will be the first call," he said, "and many will answer." The scroll dimmed. The date at the top shimmered again: June 3rd, 2025. Then the second scroll began to glow. Before he showed me the second event, Jesus stepped closer, and I can't explain this part without trembling. His presence was like standing at the center of a star, but feeling no burn, only peace. His robe shimmered with every color I've never seen. His hands, scarred but glorious, reached toward me, and though I had no physical body, I felt him touch me. With that touch, I saw my entire life in reverse. I saw myself at 4 years old, sitting alone under the piano while my parents fought. I saw 14-year-old me writing in a prayer journal and begging God to take away the panic attacks. I saw 22-year-old me holding my newborn, crying with joy and terror at the same time. And with every memory, Jesus looked at me with a kind of love that undoes all shame. "Clara," he whispered, "I've been there for all of it." And I realized I had never been alone. He lifted his hand and the second scroll opened. This one didn't show destruction. It showed revival, but in the most unexpected places. I saw high schools, coffee shops, even prison yards, young people lifting their hands, not because of performance, but because something had pierced their hearts. "In June 2025, Jesus said, I will visit the youth of the earth, and those who've never known my name will cry it from their chests like it's the only word they've ever known." And then I saw it. An entire stadium filled with teenagers worshiping. No stage, no concert, just presence. "What the church has failed to teach," he said, "I will show directly. They will dream dreams. They will hear me." The second date burned in June 9th, 2025, and he turned toward the third scroll. When I looked at the 4 scrolls floating before us, each radiating light, heat, and frequency, I realized they weren't just prophecies, they were living events, suspended in God's perfect timing. Each one felt like a drumbeat in the divine heart of eternity, waiting for its moment to fall upon the earth. And yet I wasn't afraid, because Jesus stood beside me. "You weren't chosen for your strength," he said. "You were chosen because you would remember how fragile life is, and still choose to speak." He gestured, and the third scroll lifted higher. The air changed. It grew heavier, not with fear, but with urgency. I could feel the tension between two worlds, as if Earth was standing at the edge of a tightrope and had only moments to decide which way it would fall. Jesus didn't speak again. He only looked at me, and the third scroll exploded open, not with fire, but with a sound like 1,000 locks turning all at once. Click, click, click. And suddenly, I saw money. The vision pulled me into a massive city. Skyscrapers lit up in the night. Digital signs, banks, markets, crypto screens, everything humming like a living beast. And then, one by one, those lights flickered and died. What I saw wasn't chaos. It was worse. Confusion. Bank cards stopped working. Currencies began to fluctuate so wildly that billionaires lost everything in hours. People weren't screaming in the streets, but staring at their screens with blank disbelief, watching numbers disappear like vapor. "The collapse," Jesus said softly, "will not begin with panic. It will begin with trust unraveling." Then I saw people lining up, not for food, but for answers. Bank tellers, city officials, even pastors. They didn't know what to say. But then I saw a shift. Small communities, farmers, barter systems, people of faith gathering quietly, helping each other. I saw a woman in her 70s handing out jars of homemade soup while reading Psalm 23 aloud to a trembling young couple. I saw children learning to plant food from grandparents who hadn't grown a garden in 40 years. Jesus turned to me. "This is not about wealth," he said. "It is about dependence. The systems trusted by man must fall, so that hearts may turn back to me." I asked him, "Will people suffer?" He looked away for a moment, and when he looked back, there were tears in his eyes. "Some will, but others will rise like light through cracks in the pavement." I saw humble homes becoming sanctuaries, kitchens becoming altars, people once ignored becoming the leaders of the new era. The scroll closed itself with a gust of wind. The date shimmered, June 17th, 2025, and the fourth scroll began to burn. The fourth scroll felt different from the others. Its glow pulsed like a heartbeat. As it opened, the sky around us turned dark, but not evil. Sacred, as though something cosmic was about to begin. I saw a map. It zoomed in until I recognized it. The Middle East. Over one specific region, between Jerusalem and a mountain range I couldn't name, I saw the sky split, like silk being pulled open, revealing a layer of space that hadn't been visible before. Light poured down, but this light had symbols in it, letters, languages, sounds that I instinctively knew were angelic dialects. Then I saw millions of people looking up, some terrified, others weeping, others raising their hands in surrender. Pilgrims fell to their knees, children pointed and shouted names of angels they had never learned. Soldiers dropped weapons. "This," Jesus said, "will be a witnessing phenomenon. It will confirm the reality of the supernatural to those who have doubted their entire lives. But it will also divide, for some will see my hand, and others will harden their hearts." I saw media outlets trying to explain it away, scientific panels debating particles and solar reflections. But the ones who felt it, the poor, the humble, the faithful, they knew. One image remains burned in my memory. A Muslim woman and a Jewish man standing side by side, both looking up, both silently crying. And above them, something descended that looked like a ring of fire and water, spinning but still, powerful but gentle. "This will be the final invitation," Jesus said. before many things shift. The scroll began to fade. The last date, June 24th, 2025. And then, he looked at me with an expression I will never forget, holy sorrow and burning hope. Now, Clara, you must understand why I showed you. I didn't feel worthy, not for 1 second. I was just a nurse, a mother, someone who used to sneak her Bible into the break room during 12-hour shifts. I had a messy past. I doubted often. I sometimes went months without praying properly. I looked at Jesus and said, "Why me? Why not a prophet or a pastor or someone louder than I am?" And he smiled, not the kind of smile that erases the question, but the kind that answers it without words. "Because you listen," he whispered, "and because you know what it is to be unseen." He touched my forehead, and I suddenly remembered every moment I had cried alone, every time I had wondered if my life mattered, every time I had felt invisible even in a crowded church pew. He had seen it all. Those who carry burdens silently are often the ones I choose to speak loudly in times of awakening. He told me that my voice would carry this message not because it's powerful, but because it's honest, because it comes from someone who has lived in both faith and fear, both light and shadow. Then he said something that shook me. "There will be others. I'm showing many, but few are willing to speak. You must speak." He handed me a final vision, not a scroll, not an image, just a moment. My future self, back on Earth, trembling as I shared this story in front of people. And yet behind me stood angels, reinforcing every word with waves of invisible power. "Clara," he said, "when you speak, the veil will thin, and those who are mine will feel it." And just like that, the scrolls vanished. But I wasn't done yet. The return was about to begin. Jesus's tone changed. Not harsh, but deeply serious. Like a parent trying to wake a sleeping child just before a fire breaks out. The atmosphere around us grew still again, and his words cut straight through me. "Tell them this," he said. "My church is not ready." I wanted to weep, because the moment he said it, I felt the truth of it. Not as an opinion, but as a spiritual weight. I saw churches packed with people, but filled with distraction. Leaders chasing fame. Worship turning into performance. Sermons focused on comfort, not conviction. "They play with eternity," he said, with sorrow in his eyes. "They seek blessings, but ignore obedience. They sing my name, but their hearts are far." Then he showed me something that left me shaking. I saw churches with no light, people sitting in rows, but spiritually asleep, like mannequins. Their prayers were empty echoes, never reaching beyond the ceiling. But then Jesus pointed to a small home. No stage, no audience, just 3 people praying around a kitchen table. And the light that poured from that room was blinding. "That," he said, "is my true church." He showed me how the prayers of the faithful, those hidden ones, are what has held back judgment until now. Grandmothers, prisoners, children. Not the loudest voices, but the most surrendered hearts. "Tell them," he said firmly, "they must return to me, not just my benefits. Tell them to wake up, to repent, to pray as if time is short, because it is." I asked, "What about those who won't believe this?" He looked at me with a love so intense I could hardly hold it. "Then show them with your life. Live like eternity is real, and some will follow." When it was time to go back, I felt it before he even said a word. The atmosphere began to shift again, the colors dulled, the energy around me began to thin, like I was drifting from the core of everything alive. My spirit resisted. Every part of me wanted to stay in that place where truth wrapped around you like air. "You will want to return," Jesus said gently, "but you must go. For now." He raised his hand, and I felt something like wind, but it was moving through me, not around me. The entire realm seemed to bend inward, like a book closing around me. I was being folded back into time. But before I left, he placed one final word into my spirit. When the sky shifts, when silence covers the cities, when fire dances in places it never has before, remind them of me. With that, I was ripped, not violently but suddenly, back through dimensions, each one less vibrant than the last. I passed again through the emotional fields, the tunnel, the veil of memory. I heard my name echoing, not once, but 1,000 times from different places, and then pain, cold, weight, sound. I was in my body again, but I could feel everything, the needles, the pressure on my chest, the sharp air in my throat. My lungs gasped like someone had dropped a brick on them, and then someone screamed, "She's breathing! We've got her back!" I tried to open my eyes, but the light was too harsh, too artificial. It wasn't his light, but deep down I knew I had not just returned from a dream. I had crossed through eternity. The doctors said I was gone for 7 minutes, clinically dead, no pulse, no oxygen. When they revived me, they expected brain damage, memory loss at best, vegetative state at worst. But I woke up clear. I knew every name, every date, every moment. I also knew things I shouldn't have, like the nurse's son's name who wasn't even born yet, or the hidden heart murmur in the EMT who revived me. I whispered it to him when he visited. He went to the doctor later. Turned out I was right. None of them could explain it. One neurologist even said, "Your brain was off. What you remember shouldn't be possible." But it was. And the weight of it hit me like a flood. I couldn't eat for days, could barely sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the scrolls, the faces, the prayers, the light. And most of all, I remembered his voice. I stayed quiet for weeks. I didn't tell anyone at first, not even my sister. Not until the dreams started. I'd see June 2025 written in fire across the sky. I'd see people looking up, confused, terrified, stunned. I'd wake up with his words echoing in my ears. Warn them, prepare them, lead them back to me. Eventually, I wrote it all down, every detail. And now, I'm sharing it with you. Not because I want attention. Trust me, I'd rather stay in the shadows, but Jesus didn't let me die just to come back and hide. I was shown what I was shown for a reason, and that reason is about to unfold. You're probably wondering, so what do I do with all this? Jesus didn't just show me what's coming, he told me exactly what we need to do. Prepare your hearts, prepare your homes, prepare your voices. First, he said we must return to deep prayer, not just quick prayers for safety or success, but real communion, the kind that rearranges your schedule and rewires your heart. If my people will truly seek me, he said, I will guide them through every storm. Second, he told me to tell you to simplify. Yes, simplify. Cut away distractions, social media, toxic entertainment, gossip, overconsumption. These things are the sandbags weighing down the church before the flood. The flood of change is coming, he said. Those who have trimmed their lamps will shine in the dark. Third, forgive. Bitterness will be the reason many can't hear his voice when the scrolls begin to open. I saw this. People too angry to pray, too hurt to obey. Forgiveness isn't optional in the days ahead. It's the gateway to power. And finally, he said this. When you see these things begin, do not be afraid. He reminded me that fear is the weapon of the enemy. But obedience? Obedience unlocks peace. Even in the chaos. I know this might sound wild, unbelievable even. But friend, I died. I saw him. I stood at the edge of eternity and came back with one mission. To remind the church who we really are. And to remind the world what's coming. Even after I left the hospital, something in me stayed there. I don't mean I was disoriented or traumatized. No, I mean, part of me was still connected to that realm. It never left. The veil between heaven and earth had torn from me, and when it stitched itself back up, it stitched me into both sides. The first night I was home, I saw something that made my skin go cold, not out of fear, but reverence. I was sitting in bed with my Bible open when the air in the room began to shimmer like heat waves off pavement. And there, just beyond my peripheral vision, I saw movement, not shadows, not hallucinations, presence. The atmosphere bent. I could sense it was watching, not in judgment but in intercession. These are watchers, I heard in my spirit. They surround those who carry messages. The more I stayed in prayer, the more frequent the encounters became. Sometimes at dawn, sometimes during worship. My room would fill with a presence that I couldn't describe, but I knew exactly who it belonged to. I would catch glimpses of people's real selves. I don't mean seeing their thoughts, but their burdens. I once looked into the eyes of a woman in the grocery store and saw a black thread wrapped around her heart. I stopped her gently and said, "I don't know what this means, but you need to forgive someone named Peter." She collapsed. Right there. That was her estranged son. These thin places, they show up when the spiritual realm is closer than usual. Since coming back, I've learned that June 2025 will be full of them. I've started calling them windows of consequence, time frames where our prayers, our choices, even our silence will shape nations. My people perish not because of demons, Jesus said to me once in prayer, but because they stopped looking up. And now, I can't stop looking up, because I know what's coming, and I know we're not alone. You might wonder why I waited to tell this. Why not go public right away? Because I was scared, not of people, but of failing the message. This isn't just a story. It's not a dream to write in a journal or a testimony to clap for at church. This is a commission. I wasn't just given a revelation, I was given an assignment. And now, it's yours too. If you're listening, reading, watching, you've been marked. Not by me, by truth. You were meant to hear this before June 2025 because you're part of it, part of the shift, part of the awakening, part of the resistance against spiritual apathy. Tell them, Jesus said, that when the sky goes silent, when the systems fail, when children begin to prophesy and dreams shake even the proud, tell them I am not absent. I am present in the storm. They must not hide. They must rise. You don't need a pulpit. You don't need a platform. You need surrender. You need consistency. You need to fast. You need to pray. You need to listen again, the way children listen for their mother's footsteps in the hallway. I believe some of you reading this already feel it. A pressure in your chest, a tightness in your throat, a recognition in your spirit that this is what you've been sensing, but couldn't explain. That's why I shared my story, because Jesus told me you'd be here, reading, listening, doubting, hoping. So let this be your confirmation. The scrolls are real. The dates are approaching. The veil is thinning. And your role in all of this is not accidental.